We're resuming the meeting of the council. We are in the portion of the police department budget, and we did have Deputy Mayor signed up, that had called to speak. So, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, a couple of quick questions for you, Chief. You mentioned earlier that the SROs during the summer are out in the field force, which is excellent. The other thing I would comment on that is these are officers we get for half price. So these are officers we get for half price, highly trained officers. And if there is a crisis in the community, can you not pull them out of the schools right then and there to help drive over and address some issue?
Yeah, they can take calls even during the school year. And so that's just their assignment is in the school. And they do respond to calls when they're close by if there's something that arises. So, and we do contact them while they're at the school, let them know if there's something that they can assist us with.
So that does help us substantially there. And then the new officer you're getting, I believe, is for Hayden, and they're paying the full price of that?
That's correct.
And they don't have access to USD 501 officers, if memory serves. So
No, because basically by law, 501 cannot provide services there.
So excellent. I just wanted to echo those comments there. Let's talk about attracting new officers to our community. What are the incentives that you guys are able to offer people when they move here? I mean, do we need to look at some sort of relocation costs for them? Do we need to sort out, can we partner with a bank that's willing to offer some sort of incentive on a home loan? Are there other tools you need to attract people to come to Topeka for that job?
Well, actually, right now we have a couple of things that are in place and really starting to take traction. One of those is the currently we offer a $5,000 signing bonus, and that's first class that's in class right now. The 14 were the first ones to receive that. One of the other things is we just worked out a deal with with Washburn University, and so now when an officer completes the academy, their certificate from the academy would be embossed with Washburn University's logo on it. They can take that to the admissions office, and if they enroll in Washburn University, they're going to get 24 college credit hours, and those are core credit hours, not general education, so they count towards their degree program. And as long as they enroll in Washburn University and went to our academy and they're an officer in good standing, those 24 credit hours will cost them no dollars.
That's over 30% through a bachelor's level degree. That's quite a thing.
Yeah, and those are core credit hours, like I said, not general education.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So, well, it sounds like you've got a lot of the incentives you need to try to attract people here. It's just a matter of getting out there and advertising that.
Yeah.
So, one other thing I just asked Molly about, and I'll put you on the spot too, is if there's a way to do any sort of training videos to help excite and prepare folks to take the test. If you get 50 people to sign up and only 20 people actually show up, perhaps if we did a clever video that would help get people prepared to take and pass the test, but at the same time get them excited about the law enforcement career. I don't know if you guys could work together at some point and sort out if that's possible. And no is always an acceptable answer for me. If it's not a good idea. I would
encourage you to go to our website and watch our recruiting videos.
Well, but do those help you prepare to pass the test?
They're not specifically towards the test, but we do have study materials available, and you can get that information, and we provide that to them prior to taking the test.
Sure.
So yeah.
I'm encouraging you to put those in video form, as that's most classes now I've taken online. It's a webinar type deal. So.
Duly noted. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Additional questions for police? Councilwoman Ortiz.
I just had one more. Why did we let the KBI specialist go?
The KBI was costing us right at $80,000 a year, and we were really not getting $80,000 worth of work out of that position. And so what we've done, and that was to prioritize DNA testing,
Right.
Like that. But we weren't having that many cases where we needed DNA prioritized. And so we entered into agreement with the Johnson County Crime Lab, who does DNA testing on a contractual services basis. And so we estimate that we'll save about $50,000 a year with that move.
I mean, because when it was sold to us, it was so much needed so we could get these cases rolling. And that's why
We're
I
the only
asked.
agency in the state of Kansas that has 0 rape kits that have not been submitted to, for testing. And that's really where that DNA specialist came in at the front end when we brought them on board. That's really where we got caught up, was with that. We were able to do that. And so actually our rape kit process that we have has been nationally recognized, and it was used in the study to help other agencies across the United States how to get their caught up. So the DNA specialist, like I said, it's prioritized. We could prioritize 30 items a month. And when that DNA specialist was not working on our cases, they were working for state cases for across the
Right.
for the KBI, and we didn't have that many. When we talk about DNA prioritization cases, those are ones where you're looking for a suspect, or you have a crime where you have some DNA that you really need to get that prioritized. You really need that right away. Most of our cases that we have experienced, we don't need that prioritization on DNA. We don't need that piece of evidence to make that arrest or to move forward with the case. And so that's why we looked at a contractual basis with the Johnson County Crime Lab.
Well, and that's how they sold it to us, Chief, is that we needed a quicker turnaround to get these cases. So having said all that, now you're saying the opposite, that we don't need it. But if we did need it, would they do that as well?
Well, we would send that to the Johnson County Crime Lab.
Oh, okay.
In the future. We have that ability, and that's what we've done. Going into the future, it'll be through Johnson County Crime Lab. Because right now, we've had cases over the last couple of years where KBI, even with the prioritization, wasn't able to meet our needs, and so items were sent to Johnson County anyway. And so that was one of the things, that was a fiscal decision, because we were paying $80,000 and we weren't getting $80,000 of work for the Topeka Police Department out of that position.
Yes, Councilmember Hiller.
How much, just one question, how much are we using the off-site training facility at the Armory?
Actually, I'm turning that into a regional training facility, so we have training going on out there almost every day.
Into a regional training facility? What's that mean?
My goal and my focus for that is turning that into a eastern and northeastern Kansas regional training facility where we bring officers from across the state and from out of state into training that we are hosting here at the Topeka Police Department.
Thank you.
Additional questions for police? Seeing none, we proceed with the other section of the budget. Thank you, Chief.
All right, well, the next department we have is Public Works. Several different funding sources for Public Works, and I'll just kind of jump through some of the divisions and hit the highlights. Overall, their FTE count does not change, but there are several shifts in positions, which I might touch on briefly. So looking at administration and technical support, did add a data management analyst in the technical support group, and that's to really help out with a lot of the data initiatives that we have going on in the city right now. And if you're wanting to follow along, that's on page 111. In order to help pay for that, we have shifted funding for a couple of positions across other funds. So that's the primary change there. One general thing I'll say is we talked about pavement management on Saturday, and so I'll kind of skip over that section, but just know that we've continued the funding in the general fund as well as the motor fuel fund to keep that pavement management program up at a level where we think we can get to the 60 PCI score over 10 years. Other groups. Engineering, really no significant changes to the budget there. Did have some increases in utility and internal service fees, but the department has offset those with some commodities and capital costs to keep their budget flat. On the facility side, this is one of our, and that's on page 117, one of our internal service funds. no real significant changes there. They are participating in the fleet replacement program, and so they've reallocated some resources in order to contribute to that. Then moving on to fleet services, again, one of our internal service programs. It continues, if you remember in the 18 budget, we did add the 900,000 from the fleet reserve program into their budget. This continues that funding in 19. As I mentioned, we've got 4 departments participating in that program. On the forestry side, this is a general fund supported division. More kind of shifts in cost there. They had some temporary employees that were paid out of personnel that got moved down into contractual, and so that's really the only major change there. And then on parking, we talked a little bit on Saturday. That's on page 123. This is reflecting some of the ideas that came out of the downtown parking improvement plan. A lot of that is on-site meter upgrades and other software improvements there. It does reflect a slight revenue increase that will be discussed with the governing body sometime later in the year. And then transportation operations, street maintenance, again, that is the motor fuel fund, continues to be $800,000 in funding that we had there. As we might discuss a little bit tomorrow night, that it's starting to get to the point where we need to think of how we continue funding that in future years, but for 2019 we have flexibility in there to continue that funding. And then finally, traffic operations, which is where our streetlight budget is covered out of too. There are no significant changes to that division budget. So I'll entertain any questions on Public Works.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Honor. My understanding is there's a program underway to replace all of our streetlights with LEDs. Will we recognize any cost savings from the more efficient lighting?
Councilman, that is correct. Westar is currently replacing all the city streetlights with LEDs. The estimated savings over next year is about $15,000. We budgeted basically at the same level in our electricity costs, because that is also the fund when we add new streetlights. That's where those expenses go.
Is there any expense for us replacing those? I know Westar is doing it, but
I know, I mean, it's Westar, and then basically, we pay the tariff rate for the new LED fixture.
you got a heck of a deal out of that. So our intent then is to use that 15,000 saved to roll out additional streetlights.
Yes.
Brilliant. I'm a happy camper.
Councilwoman Clear.
2 questions. For you, Dr. Peak, do we have a waiting list for streetlights anymore?
No.
Call in if you want a streetlight. Yeah. And then I don't know who to direct my next question to, because for the last 2 years that we've talked about the budget on forestry, we were looking at the department, we were changing it around, have we done that? Have we gotten through that? Anybody? I don't know who to ask. Don't know what I'm talking about?
So what I guess maybe what I can speak to in the changes that we've made in forestry, many of you may remember Adam Mosier, who was our city forester, left. The assistant city forester, Travis Tinbrink, we promoted into that position. And over the past year, working with him, a couple of things that we've accomplished is we have the start of a citywide public tree inventory. That's what we see as critical to the future of the forestry program, is knowing where our public trees are and then also adding information about the condition of those. We were actually able to do this through our technical support group. They use LiDAR, which is basically radar imaging that gives us elevation of things within the right-of-way. They wrote an algorithm to figure out which of those are trees versus streetlights versus poles. Gave us a starting point. We're testing that out. And then talking down the road, is there a way that we can use that as an engagement tool to help citizens maybe identify the species of the trees, and then of course having our arborists or certified people help us identify the condition, and then just like we talk about for pavement management, kind of having an asset management plan for our trees and working to do that on a regular basis.
What is their main goal? What do they do?
Their main
forestry.
goal is to maintain our urban canopy, right? I mean, what I'd say to you is forestry was kind of a hybrid after the Parks and Rec merger with the county. That's what was left over for the city is we got forestry. And so their primary focus is trees, but some of the other things that they manage are the 2 cemeteries that we have responsibility for. And they work with Topeka Cemetery to help assist and facilitate that. And then they also manage some of our mowing contracts as well as some of the weed management within our islands and roundabouts. And so in a broad sense, they maintain some of the green infrastructure you see.
And they do the alleys, right, if the alleys get overgrown?
Trimming, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Along the same lines, same question, I've had several constituents ask me about the forestry department. If there are trees on their property or trees in their yard that they believe are on the city easement, and those trees have overhanging branches over into the city streets, in some cases where they may be touching the tops of buses, city buses that are going through, does the forestry department come out and assess that, if whether or not it's a hazard, and then do they then take action on that?
Yes, sir. I mean, they can do that via C-Click Fix or our 311 phone number system to call that in, and forestry will come out and assess, one, if it's a tree that we have responsibility for, and then what action is needed to address the tree.
Okay, I thought so, but when I was talking to a couple of them, they said that they had made the call and were told that that was no longer operation by the forestry department. So maybe not everyone is giving the same information to the
If you want to
public.
forward me that information, I can make sure we follow up with them.
Thank you, Doug.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Peak, did I hear correctly that forestry department they do trim the right-of-way alleys and stuff? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they don't go through regularly and trim every alley. I mean, a lot of what I'd say is complaint-driven in their trimming program. And it's basically, we're looking at site obstructions, things like that. So there may be things that someone's wanting trimmed that forestry comes out and assesses and says, that's not needed.
Okay, I think maybe as Mr. Padilla says, well, I was told that that wasn't the case, and like last year, that they won't go out and do vegetation in alleys and stuff. And I hope they do. I mean, I think it's a valuable service.
I'd need to know the specifics and could look into it and get you an answer back on
Sure.
that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Heller.
Thank you. There's a comment here about readjusting in fleet and developing a loaner pool. Some time ago, the yard had gotten full of old vehicles that weren't getting driven very much, and there was sort of a purge, sell off, take them for junk. I don't know what they did with them, but there was some discussion that where we found that that a vehicle wasn't being driven all the time, they were going to look at whether we'd be better off to lease as needed than to hang on to and maintain a fleet, particularly an aging fleet. Was that looked at when the decision was made for the motor pool?
So this is a goal kind of we're looking at implementing, and basically we're looking currently at doing it with existing vehicles in order to reduce existing vehicle inventory. I mean, we have had some contact with, say, Enterprise and other vendors about is there a model like that works for us, but right now we're just trying to do it on internal vehicles at a couple of pilot locations.
Well, I just saw in reading through it, I can't point at it right now, where a certain amount of money, maybe extra money, was being set aside to do the maintenance on those reserve vehicles as well. And so if it had, and you're doing a great job with all this, I saw that and I remembered that they really looked at the numbers, because it could be better off not to own them at some point. So,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Heller. City Manager.
Council members, we're at 9 o'clock, and based on announcements needing to be done, and also we have a half-hour exec session, The question would be, is in order to make sure that we are adjourning by 10 o'clock, we would need to move to the last two departments, utilities and zoo, to tomorrow night, if that would be your desire. Okay, your call.
Seems like there's general consensus. I see a lot of heads nodding yes. I'm saying, well, whatever.
We have a baby giraffe.
It's been a full evening, but I know that the staff had hoped to get all the way through all the funds tonight. So what does that do to, if we don't stay a little longer tonight, what does that do to our schedule?
Bless you.
So tomorrow night was going to focus on the other funds and programs, of which, you know, a lot of utilities and public works funds are in there. So I think I talked to utilities and they would be okay moving to tomorrow night. That discussion, there are a lot of funds there, but a lot of them are fairly quick and you can move through them relatively quickly. So given the time frame, I think schedules from 6 to 8 tomorrow night. We'll probably go over the Q&A that I sent out this afternoon, and then jump into the department discussion, and then go through the other funds and.
I just wanted to double check so that we didn't push ourselves out and end up needing to add a meeting when we could have adjusted, and so you know that better than we do. Super, thank you.
All right. Well, now that we have finalized discussion on the operating budget, I think that the next, he's gone. He's gone. We had Mr. Ledbetter signed up for public comment, but he indicated that he was going to head out. So at this point in time, we now proceed with the announcement. City Manager. Almost there.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the agenda for July 3rd, we have an award we're looking for producing, continuing the operating budget discussion, looking at a sales tax resolution, looking at for action items, the neighborhood grant program, phase 2, and a resolution on zoning ordinance for 336 Southeast 45th. The other item I'd like, if Fire Marshal Mike Martin would please come forward. I want to have him cover, as we're headed into before we meet again, well, just after we meet again, the process starts for people being able to purchase and shoot fireworks. And so ask the Fire Marshal to go over some of the do's and don'ts and provide information to us as we head in, and the public as we head into that season.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mayor, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to just come up here real quick. I'll be brief. We are going to begin fireworks sales the 27th of this month. We've got 33 stands that we're going to be inspecting on the 27th to get them operating. That's down from 36 last year, so we've lost a few of the stands. Just to cover really briefly what we're on the last year of the ordinance before we change in 2019 over to the new rules. So the fireworks discharge for this year will be as it has been in the past, from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and then 8 a.m. to 11:59 on the 4th. Sales will go from the 27th through the 5th, and then after that, the new ordinance will go into effect. So next year we'll do the changes that were adopted through council. Just really wanted to take an opportunity to make sure everybody has a good, fun, safe holiday as far as the public, and talk about a couple safety aspects. One, make sure that when you are shooting off your fireworks that we always have some type of water source available, some type of extinguishment. We also want to make sure that the person that's lighting off the fireworks is not the person that's been drinking all night, so we want to have a designated igniter for the evening, somebody who's going to be responsible to do that. So alcohol and fireworks obviously do not mix. With our current ordinance and the new ordinance, we do have to make sure that anyone under 18 years of age that is lighting off fireworks is under the direct supervision of an adult. So we have to make sure that we don't send our children outside just to set off fireworks. I want to make sure too that we take the opportunity to set it up right. So before we go shoot off those fireworks in our yard, find out where that fallout zone is going to be, wet down the area, mow your grass good, get everything situated so when if those sparks do occur, that we have a source available to put it out and that we've made sure that the area is prepped. It's a good idea to just take a hose and wet down the grass in the area where the fireworks are going to be put off. Make sure they're always on a solid surface. We don't want them so that they're going to fall over and hit the crowd of people watching your fireworks. And then the last thing, just to make sure that you never try and relight a dud. If a firework doesn't go off, just let it set for 10 to 20 minutes and then douse it in water. We do have a lot of injuries that occur every year. We'll be sending out surveys to all the medical facilities within the area, and we'll track those, and I'll get those results back to you the end of as soon as we can get everything over, give you a brief of how many calls we ran that were associated with fireworks and how many injuries were associated as we get those back in. Other than that, the fire department hopes that everybody has a safe and sane fireworks season. Kind of the catchphrase we've used for several years is safe, sane, and sober. So get out there, have a good time, and enjoy it, but make sure that it's done safely. If you have any questions, the public has any questions, feel free to call my office, and we'll get any kind of safety information out, and we'll be sending stuff out to the media through the week. So unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. City Manager?
I have two other quick items. Of course, as we mentioned, our budget workshop is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the LEC. Also on the 20th, tomorrow, Coffee on Your Corner. They will be at Julie's Bistro at 10 a.m. to discuss the neighborhood health map.
Thank you, City Manager. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all the women that were recognized today at the YWCA luncheon. It was amazing to see how many women were nominated and the richness of the stories of what each lady did. We had last weekend on Friday, I think it was, we had the Great Overland Station had a Havana Nights for their fundraiser. Oh my God, it was a blast. And there was salsa dancing in Topeka. So that was phenomenal. We had yesterday a book-rich environment over at Deer Creek, was able to be there with the Topeka Public Library, with the groups of United Way and Topeka Housing Authority as a partnership. There were books being provided to all of the kids in the neighborhood so that they could read. And then Johnsonville donated all of the brats and hot dogs so that the kids could actually have some food that day. And they were promoting their jobs that pay starting $15 an hour. So it was a really nice event. And there may or may not be footage of me running with a balloon and sitting on it in a competition. The fact that the other person that was competing with me fell off the chair has nothing to do with me pushing them. I promise. Today is a big day. Today is Juneteenth. And for those of you who don't understand the history of Juneteenth, I'll be really succinct. When Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, there were still states that were using it. For example, Texas was the scapegoat for people to go with their slaves, which was also utilized as a place for individuals who were slaves that were liberated to escape and go into. A few years later, 2,000 people show up, and June 19th, I think it was 1865, if memory serves me right, and if I don't have the year right, forgive me, historians, really had, for the first time, freedom. We had freedom. And it means something. It means something because it means that in a point in time in which we had laws and regulations, when Lincoln was elected, there were laws in our country that stated that slavery was okay. But he had the fortitude of character to say it was not. And that's why we have the changes that we have today. So it's great for us to reflect on that, because I want all of us to reflect on the things that we could be doing as leaders. Things that may be right now in place that may just not be right. So let's just be courageous and let's be compassion warriors and working together to love each other and to be compassionate with our neighbors. We had a really cool event. City manager and chief of police and I were recognized. There was a hip hop first awards in our community, and it was the urban community. And we were so honored that all three of us were recognized for the efforts that we have been making to bring our community together after all the challenges that we had in the community. And it was not only a great event, but I personally feel so thankful to work alongside the gentlemen that were also recognized, because, I mean, the things that we're doing in the community, to consider the way that we started the year and to see how far we've come in such a short period of time is nothing less of miraculous. And then finally, I want to say thank you to the people at the Plaza West Apartments that allowed me to be there with you today, talking with you about your concerns. City manager already has an email from me with the things that were listed as concerns that you had, and I look forward to meeting other people in the community. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Juneteenth was local as well. Saturday, when I got out to Hillcrest Park, there were a lot of really tired kids and grown-ups in wet bathing suits that had had a great time, and they had lots of music, lots of other things to do, and wound it down with some slower music, and Aaron Price there at the end of the day. It was awesome. A great committee, local committee, put that together. I want to reiterate about the YWCA event. It was wonderful today. A tremendous, diverse group of probably at least 40 women who were recognized. Tawny Stottlemyre, who was right in the middle of the front row most of the meeting, the Director of Community Action, was one of the women recognized as a Woman of Excellence today. Also wanted to do a shout out to the Capital Journal. I thought that the downtown package in Sunday's paper was phenomenal. They covered a lot of ground, interviewed a lot of people, did a great job with that. They also did a really good introductory, much more in-depth investigative feature article about downtown parking to help kick off the work that we'll be doing this fall, and interviewed staff on that, and the staff did a great job. And then finally, the coverage, which took a lot of my time last week, about the Shunga Trail getting torn up and what the status was. I appreciated the reporting, the way they did it, as well as the commentary in the editorial. Those are tough decisions that staff made, and we supported, and it all is going to work out all right. Thanks everybody too for all the work that you've done in advance. I know I kind of took the hood ornament on some of the ordinance issues, but I know people have been working on them, and look forward to working with everybody and the staff who's worked so hard on them to answer questions and work through them. And with that, have a great 4th of July.
Councilwoman Clear. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank Fire Marshal, God, I can see his name, and I can see his, Martin, there you go, for reminding Mr. Henderson how to act on the 4th of July. I appreciate that, because he's a big kid at heart. And speaking of kids, the kid who grew up with all the challenges.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yes, we did.
But you know, in all seriousness, that's awesome. That's awesome that our mayor is out there, and she's doing her thing. So I hope she will continue to have fun in her position, because that's what it's all about. City Manager, we had a Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. You were there. Great presentation. And I would like to make sure that each council member gets a copy of what we got on there, and also a copy of Luther's slideshow, because it was remarkable. If you haven't seen it or read it, I would encourage you to do that. We will have a second meeting, and I apologize. I need to get that set up. And in all seriousness, to the new members, I'm not going to talk about smoke detectors, because you're going to get enough calls over the 4th of July weekend that you're going to forget about smoke detectors and think about the ordinance. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Henderson, Councilman Padilla, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Briefly, I appreciate you mentioning the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting, but if we could trim that down. I know we've got a busy July, but that's the night before a holiday, and a lot of the folks from the city, including us, will be trying to get ready for festivities the next day and meeting till 10:30, 11 o'clock the night before, especially if you have family trying to land for the day. That's going to be rough. So I would very much support trimming that down substantially. In other news, if you didn't make it to the incredibly exciting JADO meeting last night, the body voted unanimously to move the broadband initiative forward. And I want to thank all the folks in the past that have worked to get it where it is now. It's 5 years in the making, and they've graciously agreed to let me help sort of shepherd it into the next phase. And I'm excited to announce that it's moving forward. We've got a lot of great meetings scheduled. If anybody has questions about that, I would love to sit down and chat with you and try to explain how we're shifting that around and what it will mean for folks in the city as well as folks in the county. There's two aspects we're looking at, and one of them is how do we make it more available in the city and easier to access, that sort of thing. So while traditionally everybody thinks of it as just, oh, this is a county problem, there's absolutely a part of it that is a city issue, and we're working diligently to make sure that that's covered as well. So I would love to meet with anybody on the governing body who has questions or concerns and explain what's going on and how your part can help make this successful. Have a great week, everybody.
Councilman Mays, Councilman Cohen, Councilman Lesser.
Just real quick, I think the council will be pleased to know I came up with a plan so we can solve the pothole problem. Domino's Paving for Pizza program. I've filled the application out, sent it in. Pretty optimistic.
I believe my executive assistant has already sent one in.
Great minds think alike.
Oh my gosh. Councilman Jensen, on your note of thanking the individuals, I want to personally thank Commissioner Bueller for her leadership, Mayor Wolgass and Gina Millsap, because they were the ones that put all of the hard work to make sure that we have something that we can work on with right now. And their work was phenomenal. And them including you in the process just allowed a geek to speak the language that could translate geek to layman's term to us, because we have some consultants in the process. So it's been nice to, be an addition, but all thanks to Commissioner Bueller and Gina Millsap.
My job is easy because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. They've done phenomenal work. With that being said, we have the public comment. The first person signed up to speak is Paul Hahn.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'll make it quick because it's late, and I didn't bring any peanuts. I'm here to ask you about a resolution, and I'll tell you a very quick story. A few weeks ago, I found a great job opportunity here with municipal court and decided to apply for it. I was excited. Then I ran into Resolution 7263, which you may be familiar with, that requires folks that work for the city to be residences of the county at the very least. And so I then called the HR and says, is this like written in stone? It looks like a law. And they said, yeah, it's a law. It's pretty much written in stone. And so I thought I'd come and ask you about it as to whether or not this is something you've considered amending. Many municipalities have these kinds of laws. I understand the purpose behind them, and they make sense. At the same time, I'm a little bit, I see myself as a person applying for a position with some very specific qualifications that not too many people are going to have, and I'm being excluded because of this. And I'm wondering, is that the best thing for the city? Unemployment's really low. That makes another challenge when you're trying to recruit folks. And the unfortunate thing, maybe I shouldn't put it that way. It's late. I'm not picking good words. But y'all as a municipality, when you're trying to hire people for public administration, you're competing with the state because you're here in Topeka. You are here in the capital. So I'm just curious as to whether or not, as a body, you would consider some amendments to the resolution to potentially allow for the exemption of certain positions, a certain percentage of positions, to give the opportunity for people like me who can't move. My situation doesn't allow me to relocate my family. To have the opportunity to maybe expand your pool of potential candidates for positions like this. Kind of a rhetorical question. I think that's all yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Could we ask where you live?
Douglas County. Yeah, I live in Douglas County. And, when I worked at SRS some years back when they called it SRS, I noticed about a third of the people I worked with, they were not locals. And so, you know, as a municipality, you are competing even with Douglas County, you're competing with other counties for talent. It's kind of weird for me to ask you this because these resolutions, a law like this makes sense. You know, you kind of dance with the one that brung you, right? I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. You're trying to build a community of your own. You don't want your money going elsewhere. And so I understand that. But at the same time, when you do have really difficult to fill positions,
You still have a minute.
what are your options? Are your hands tied as a city when you have that situation? And I called HR, you know, like I said, to see, gee, is this really written in stone? And while I was talking to them, I'm not going to mention who I was talking to because I don't think I have that permission to mention their name. But as I was talking to the person on the phone, they happened to pull up my application online, which was getting ready to be trashed by the computer system because I checked the thing saying I don't live in the county. And she said, "Oh, you're well qualified." And I was kind of like, "Oh, come on." Surely there's a way that this can be changed to allow some flexibility for these kinds of situations.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
The next person signed up to speak is Virginia Mendez.
I'll be brief and to the point, because it's late. Everybody's worried about how, I just want to make one comment kind of off the rail about this housing stuff. What we all need to do as individuals, all of us in this town, is to make this town shine, 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 so we can attract more industry here and more jobs. And then if people have jobs, that solves a lot of problems. Just think about it. Okay, what I'm here for tonight is I almost died from this sorrow virus that all of my doctors are telling me was caused by the city water of Topeka. And when it all started, my problems was I can't remember if it was the day before or the day after Valentine's Day, I turned on my water faucet, this green stuff came out of it that smelled just like bowel movement, slimy green stuff. And I thought, oh my word, I already made my coffee and drank it. And I don't want to drink that. And then I started getting sick the next day with the vomiting, the diarrhea, and all of that. And then I got a letter from the wonderful water department saying that if you have any illness, go to your doctor. Well, I went to my doctor, and the stupid nurse practitioner who saw me did a stool for occult blood, and I kept telling her I think I need it for, you know, bacteria and all that, but she wouldn't order it. So I kind of got myself better, quit drinking the city water. And then I got sick again, and I went back, and they didn't do nothing about it. Well, then, of course, I go off to Orlando, Florida to take a vacation, and I got really sick there, naturally, after I'd spent all that money to go to Orlando, or my daughter had. My daughter paid the money. Well, so anyway, we got back home. I had to be hospitalized for 8 days in Kansas City after we got home. I was having 24 stools a day, quart-sized stools. They did all kinds of lab work, and I told them what happened, and they said that city water was where I got the disease. And anyway, I ended up at St. Francis on the 8th because I had to go over there because a stupid doctor in Kansas City released me without medicine to cover my electrolytes. And this Dr. McLaughlin, I believe that's his name, I've known him for years, he said, oh my goodness, he said, the people have been coming in here in droves from the nursing homes with the diarrhea and all of that, unexplained diarrhea, and we just thought it was the flu. And he said, now that I've talked to you, I don't think it's the flu. So we reported the city water department, he and I did, to the State Department of Health. So this is what they told me. They said that this sorrow virus is not filtered out, as the city water department is telling me, by charcoal. So I'm not even going to waste getting me a charcoal filter. And they say that I can't even ever drink city water again, not to ever drink it. And then the other day, I thought I was doing better, and I was using the ice. And then I find, going through my ice maker, well, I found out that the water melted the tires at Goodyear. So now how is that safe for human consumption? I want to know. if it melts those tires at Goodyear, how are people supposed to be safe in drinking it? Now, if somebody answer me that question, I'd like to know. What is that doing to somebody's insides? Well, I'm really upset because I'm trying to live on Social Security, and that's quite a challenge these days. I'd like a refund on my water bill because I'm having to go spend $30, $40 a month on water because I can't use the city water. They told me not to cook with it, not to drink it, or anything. So much for that. Anyway, then there's the other little issue, not issue, big issue, and it was resolved today. The street department finally got out and cleaned my street. It took them 4 trips down there with that street sweeper to get that filthy place cleaned up. It had used condoms all over it. It was a mess. They couldn't believe what a mess it was. I said, well, that's why I've been calling y'all.
Do you need an extra minute or two?
Yeah, just one more minute and I'll quit.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, thank you very much. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor, please vote.
So,
Just a second.
okay.
We have 8 yes.
8 having voting yes. Ms. Mendez, you can continue
Okay,
for 2
thank
minutes.
Anyway, I called the health department about that business on the street. They said those used condoms can cause sexually transmitted disease, hepatitis, antibiotic-resistant staph, tuberculosis, and about 5 other things. And then the rabbit droppings that they swept up today can cause what they call tularemia, or rabbit fever in lay terms. Well, they got it cleaned up, and it's a lot better. I really appreciate the street department coming out and doing that, except up at the corner where this guy has his food truck parked at 24th and Boswell Court. Now, to me, that's kind of a danger anyway, because cars come around that corner and about run into that, and it just blocks the traffic and everything. I don't know. I'm not a policeman, and I'm not a lawyer, but it kind of looks to me like he might be violating a city code. I don't know what the code is about it. So anyway, we've all decided in the neighborhood, if they don't start keeping our street clean, we're going to go contact an environmental lawyer. And this is ridiculous that we have to live like in a third world country when we're living in America. Sorry.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Mendez.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comment. At this point in time, we're going to recess into an executive session. If the attorney could please read the parameters.
Motion is to recess into executive session for a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes for consultation with the city's legal counsel to discuss attorney-client privilege matters related to contract negotiations as justified by KSA 75-4319B3. In order to aid the discussion, the following individuals should be present: members of the governing body, City Manager Brent Trout, Deputy City Manager Doug Gerber, Police Chief Bill Cochran, Fire Chief Craig Duke, Financial and Administrative Services Director Nikki Lee, Human Resources Director Jackie Russell, Budget and Performance Manager Nick Hawkins, Senior Assistant City Attorney Catherine Walter, Assistant Budget Manager Ted Clemens, and myself. No action is anticipated to be taken when the open meeting resumes in the governing body chambers.
We have heard the parameters. Do we have a motion? Deputy Mayor makes a motion. Councilman Emerson seconds. All those in favor of recessing into executive session, please vote. And all that are not as well. Eight having voting yes, we're recessing into executive session. We need to vacate the room, and we will begin shortly.
Yeah.
We are in need to continue the executive session. If there has been no action taken, if the city attorney could please read the extension of time? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting until after our executive session
Thank you. We have a
continue.
motion for an extension. We have a second by Councilman Jensen. So all in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. We now recess into executive session.
Oh, that was just.
Extend the
Oh,
motion.
to go back into, it's late, my friends. We now go back into
I'll make a
executive
motion to go
session
back and do executive session.
for
15,
15.
Second.
Okay,
with the same,
with the same parameters and the same individuals. So we first motion, we suspended the council rules that say 10 o'clock. And now the second motion is to go back into executive session for an additional time not to exceed 15 minutes. We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, second by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, we now recess again into executive session for a time not to exceed 15 minutes. There is a need to extend the executive session. Do I have a motion? And the parameters are with the same individuals that are here presently. Not to exceed 20 minutes by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilman Lesser. All those in favor of extending the executive session, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. There has been no action taken. We recess again into executive session. There has been no action taken. The meeting is adjourned.